Hey, this is Derek Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today, I'm joined by Jim Matus and Richie Barshay, and we're going to do some playing for you later, live in the studio. But for now, welcome Jim Matus and Richie Barshay to the World Fusion Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's great to have you. Now, Jim, we've had you before on the show, and you and I have played together for quite a while. I asked people to go and check out your show that we did earlier, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about your very unusual instrument, the laoutar. So why don't you describe that to our listeners?
Okay, well, it's basically an electric laouto. And a laouto is a Greek lute. It's shaped in an egg shaped, similar to an oud, but it's tuned much differently and it has metal strings. I was introduced to the laouto maybe 25 years ago. I fell in love with it, and I was playing the original for about 10 years. And I realized that I wanted more flexibility, more range. So I had Rick Turner build me an electric laouto, which I call a laoutar. And as it turns out, it's basically tuned like a mandocello. So it's a combination of a laouto and a mandocello. Totally different tuning than a guitar. I'm originally a guitar player. So I had to relearn all the scales, all the chords, and I find it hard to go back to the guitar now because I'm so into the laoutar. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. So you've been playing it now for a while, right?
For over 20 years.
Yeah. It's really great. Yeah. And Richie, I wanted to just introduce you to our audience. You are a multi-percussionist, play pretty much everything that you can hit.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. This is great to be here. My first instrument actually in a band was the timbales, the Afro-Cuban timbales. Back when I was 13, I played with the Curtis brothers and a community of musicians in the Hartford area. So I grew up playing Afro-Cuban music alongside jazz on the drum set, but it was through Afro-Cuban percussion, timbales, congas, bongo, eventually drum set, that I first sort of like got my hunger for world percussion. And then at New England Conservatory in the early 2000s, I fell in love with the tabla. There's a teacher that's still there, Jerry Leak, who's a wonderful Boston area percussionist and author and teacher, incredible musician. And I really got deep into tabla, frame drum with him. And it just kind of continued on from there. I've had, long-lasting love affairs with the music of Brazil and Brazilian percussion. But I would say that the tabla and frame drums have kind of influenced that particular way of moving the hands, has really influenced a lot of my world percussion work. And even the way I phrase on the drum kit, because I have a sort of an origin spot of playing jazz on the drum kit. So I think it influences everything I do on the drums too.
That's great. That's really great. Now, today, we're going to be playing a few videos that we made today, and you're playing tabla and some other percussion with that on these videos. So people are going to get to hear your tabla work and frame drum work with that. And maybe we should actually go to one of those videos right now and have some music. All right? Cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Hey, we are back with Jim Matus and Richie Barshay. And I wanted to ask you guys, you've been making some records, CDs lately of your original music, and which is similar to what we just heard. So tell us about that process and what you're doing with those records.
Well,
sure, yeah.
we met only about a year ago, right?
Yeah, I think it's been closer to 2, hasn't it?
Maybe a year and a half. But
Yeah.
the way we got together was my partner, Lila, and I, who's a singer. We have a group called Talamana, and we were looking for a percussionist. And somehow, miraculously, we found Richie, who had just moved up here from Brooklyn.
Yeah, it was one of my first cold calls moving up to the Valley. One of my first, I think it might have been a cold email of just like, hi, I'm this person. Do you want to do this with me?
So, yeah, we did a bunch of rehearsing. It's very worked out, arranged music. It's not, there are improvisations in it, but it was done track by track.
Mm-hmm.
And he did lots of overdubs. So that's our studio project. It's called Talamana. And it's also with a sitar player. So it has that kind of Indian flavor to it, but it's basically folky, jazzy tunes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
With vocals by my partner, Lila Salins.
Right, good. And Richie, you have a new CD also, right?
Yeah, the album came out a few years ago now, but it's called Sanctuary. It's a sort of exploration of chamber music that I recorded in an old synagogue in Brooklyn, where I ran a concert series for years. And it's a bunch of my own compositions. Chick Corea plays piano on a couple of the tracks.
Nice.
And yeah, it's an adventure. It's called Sanctuary.
That's great. So why don't we go to our next video and see what else you guys got cooked up for us today.
Okay.
Cool.
right, we are back with Jim Matus and Richie Barshay. I wanted to ask you, you have some other new CDs. What else have you got?
Yeah, well, a couple months after we recorded Cloud Call, Jim just called me up and said, you want to just play some duo sometime? I'll just set up mics at my studio and we'll figure out what you can bring. I think you were leaning towards tabla and smaller percussion. And we just made this whole album over 2 or 3 afternoons, just pressing the record button, playing and stopping, and playing and stopping. And it turned into this kind of tableau of different moods and short pieces that kind of a 21st century attention span can listen to. And I love what we came up with.
That's great. Yeah.
And it was released a couple months ago on this online label. We don't have physical products. It's all just digital. It's called Right Brain Records.
Right.
And they're out of Seattle. And they mainly focus on improvisational music. I don't think there's anything on there that's actually composed.
Right.
And it's a lot of world music, a lot of like free jazz, just really out there, free stuff.
Yeah.
But ours is much more modal and kind of friendlier to the untrained ear.
I understand.
We're not totally outside like some of the Right Brain Records.
Right. Cool. All right, we got more video. Let's go to our next video. And so let's check this out. This is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
right, we are back with Jim Matus and Richie Barshay. I wanted to ask you guys about your musical influences, not just for the record that you put out, but in general, like what have been your most strong inspirations in music?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say when Jim invited me for this project to play tabla primarily, it kind of brought back my love of Indian music, of course. But as someone who's not, I don't profess to be like a professional tabla player. I'm not at a very high level in terms of that very intricate instrument. But I sort of bring with me the polyrhythms of Hindustani, North Indian music into a wider palette. So I have cymbals that I actually play on the floor that you saw in the video, some frame drums. So it's kind of this attempt to get that sort of part of the world, the rhythmic phrasings of India, into almost a Western drum set sound against this guy who just the sort of blanket of sound you create.
Yeah. Jim, you really have a unique sound on the laoutar. Very drone-oriented, I would say not staccato, at all. And so it's just very flowing experience. So you want to talk about your influences in that?
Well, since it's kind of a unique instrument, my influences are more from the old days when I was a guitar player. Like everybody from, Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck up to John McLaughlin and Alan Holdsworth. I think fusion.
Guitar gods.
Yeah. Fusion guitar gods were my heroes. But I also love people like Richard Thompson.
Yeah.
Who has that folky, really gritty, beautiful acoustic stuff and electric. So my influences are probably like most guitar players, like 300 guys that I love,
right.
that I admire.
Yep. There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there. It's true. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and I think also for this album, we draw on the music of like Tuareg music from North Africa.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some Indian stuff in there. I want to say there's some sounds of like Greek folk song. But there's a lot of this playing with groove and suspending the groove and staying out of time.
All right. So we've got one more video to go to. So let's go to that video right now. All right, we are back once again with Jim Matus and Richie Barshay. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on the show today and sharing your very cool and original music with our audience. I'm sure they're really going to appreciate it.
And thank you, Derek, for playing with us and adding that whole other dimension with the violin. It was great.
Well, it's fun for me to do this again. It's been quite a while since we've had a live show recorded in the studio at Brattleboro Community TV. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like old times with our wonderful sound guy, Al. Right, Al?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Esler doing the video. So I really do appreciate you guys. And good luck with everything.
Yeah.
And
thank you. Thanks for having us.
We'll list your website at the end of the show and where people can buy your CDs and contact you and keep this thing going.
Yeah, and we do play somewhat regularly at Dance Spirit in Williamsburg. We do a live performance thing.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Derek Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. It's been great to have you. Please share this episode and others with your friends on Facebook and YouTube. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Mackenzie Family Charitable Trust, Chris Pratt, Nancy Feinberg, and Ron Dans for their generous support. And as we always like to say on the show, remember, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.